welcome to my channel. This is Angelus, and today I want to talk a little bit about investing in real estate. This video was, what inspired me to create this video is that I recently had a talk with an old friend who had invested in an apartment complex back about 17 years ago, and it was in the Bridgeport, Connecticut area. And when I talked to him recently and asked him how was the business going, I was figuring he's got to be probably owning 2 or 3 more buildings by now, and he must be doing extremely well. And he gave me a horror story, and I figured from this horror story, and the end to his horror story is he lost the building and he had a loss financially when he sold it. So he made a lot of basic mistakes that many new entrepreneurs, or should I say some of you are still working your corporate jobs, new investors make in not knowing what they don't know. So I want to make sure that you guys understand these simple principles, these simple techniques to prevent you from ending up like my friend did and saving your nest egg so you can have passive income later on. It started off with him telling me that he lost the building after attempting to manage it for many years. And I said to him, specifically, what happened? And when he told me that he couldn't maintain it any longer, and he was waking up 1 o'clock in the morning to take care of a busted water heater, the first thing that came to my mind is, are you insane? You mean you didn't have somebody on call 24/7 to take care of problems in the middle of the night? You mean you were actually fixing your own problems? He lived not too far from the complex, so basically he was being cheap, and he was being his own Mr. Fixer. And whenever something went wrong in the building, he took care of it himself. Of course, that became a full-time job, and he also was at the time working a full-time job. So didn't have many more hours really to do anything else but sleep, eat, and never mind his family life. So his first mistake he made, working for a company, working for the corporation that he was in, was he bought way too big of a property to manage. That's the first mistake. So I want you to understand this. First thing you should do, get a piece of property that's manageable. Okay? Don't get a large complex or too many complexes. Start with the one. I'm seeing many successful multi-millionaires, self-made, just start off literally 20 years ago with a single 2.5 bedroom apartment house. It's like, it wasn't really big, not a big investment, but now they're doing extremely well. He bought too big and he wasn't ready to manage it. That's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is he lost a lot of money when he sold it because he was also getting sued. He was getting problems with legal matters. And in that process, the thing that came to my mind is, that's okay. Did you insure it? And he said, well, what kind of insurance? I got insurance for fire, this and that. I said, no, I don't mean insurance to take care of the property in case it gets damaged or anything like that, or fire or water or weather. I'm talking about, did you protect it? Create a corporation around it? He didn't understand what I was talking about, so obviously he didn't. That's lesson number 2. It's very important, even if you say you have income producing property right now and you live in it and you rent out the other 1 or 2 if you live in a 3-family house, it really behooves you to turn it into its own separate entity. Get an LLC for the apartments you rent. I do this with my mother's apartment right now. She's in Bridgeport. She lives in the same house that one of her renters live. So I just basically set up a different bank account, an LLC for that apartment, and everything is just separated. Her personal assets are protected because of the LLC. Because if something happens to the apartment, if something happens where, they get hurt, the tenants get hurt and they want to sue, first they should have their own insurance, apartment insurance, but they want to sue the landlord, this will protect my mother because I already set it up for her, LLC for the apartment. So lesson number 2, if you don't treat your apartments, your investments as separate entities, you risk all your personal finances later on. You don't want to take that risk. Get an LLC which is the least expensive way, on that apartment or those apartments that you currently have. And if you're a newbie and you're going to buy income producing properties, make sure you put an LLC to it. Get the right lawyer, an accountant to make sure that, and financial advisor to make sure you got the right LLC, but get it. It'll save you a lot of headaches in the future. Trust me. People don't know this, but about 18 years ago, my wife and I, when we were living in New Haven, Connecticut, we owned a few income producing properties. I think it was about 5 of them that were all 3-family houses. But each house was treated as a separate entity. Each house had its own LLC. Each house, I made it so they had their own bank account. So whenever I got rent from one apartment or one house, I should say, that went into its own account to maintain the house, to pay the taxes, the water, everything. The house took care of itself. It paid itself because it has own. It's almost like its own person. And I treated each one of them differently. And if I was to have any problems with any one of them, which we did later on, the LLC protected both my wife and I personal finances. So those are the first 2 things you want to do. The other thing is, most important, my friend didn't understand. If you're single, if you have only one property that you're renting out, maybe you're living in a 2-family, 3-family house and you're renting 2 of the floors, maybe you won't really need this because you're living right there and you're on the spot to fix any things that go wrong, the water heater, the heating system, air conditioning, whatever, if you have central air. You don't really need to worry so much. But if the property is further away from where you live, and by the way, I just want to let you know, want to explain to you, if you have properties, if you're first-time investors, it really is a great idea to try and get properties that are near where you live so that if there are issues that require you to be there, it's not a big drop of your responsibilities to just get up and go and check out. It's nearby so you can take care of it. All the properties that my wife and I had in New Haven, they were around the block from us, so I can get there real quick. But here comes the third lesson. The mistake my friend made was he was trying to be Mr. Fixer, trying to be the landlord who fixes everything. You know, when you call, only the landlord comes and fixes it. He was being cheap. First of all, I made the mistake of buying too big, but he also was making the mistake of being too cheap. So for the apartment complex he had was so huge, he needed a property manager. Now, if you have a smaller dwelling, 1-family, 2-family, 3-family, then all you need is just a dedicated 24/7 Mr. or Mrs. Fixer. There are Mrs. out there. And this person, you hire them basically to come a couple times a month and check the property, maintain the property. In the summer, cut the lawn. In the winter, just check the plumbing and other things. They're the numbers that the tenants call immediately if the water heater breaks in the middle of the night or the heater breaks in the middle of the winter night. These people come while you're home in bed sleeping. And then when you wake up, had your cup of coffee or tea or breakfast, then they call you and tell you what happened. You can then deal with it. You can still be working a full-time job while this is all set up. So if you're a first-time investor or you're thinking about investing, you don't have to leave your day job. Just make sure that the property is near you, it's small and manageable, and you have a Mr. Fixer on call 24/7. Now, if you happen to have, like my friend did, a large apartment complex, then you get a property management company, and there's many out there. You find the best one in your area, and you manage them. But again, going back to the LLC in a separate entity, the money that comes from the rent goes into its own bank account. That bank account then takes care of the house. And what you do is part of that money that goes from the rent to take care of that entity then goes to take care of the property manager. So all the things that require taking care and maintaining the property is taken off the top every month. When the rent comes in, then you pay off all the things that's required. And if you do it that way, I guarantee you, you won't have any problems and you won't lose the building like my friend did at a loss. When my wife and I did our apartments, we had a small, because there was only five apartments that we were dealing with, and I didn't want to be called late at night like my friend was. What I did is I got a handyman, And at some point, I even rented for a discount. I rented one of the apartments to an individual who just kind of maintained the place. He was a caretaker. He took care of all the properties and he lived it. So that was an option. If you have enough apartments, you can also rent one out and have that person, for a discounted price on the rent, be the caretaker of all the other properties. Worked very well. So whichever you pick, the 3 lessons I want you to all to take with you with this video is make sure you turn it into an entity, legal entity, LLC it, separate bank account. Second, you make sure you can manage them in the nearby where you're already living. Third, that you have a property manager or Mr. Fixer or a caretaker to maintain the property. That way you can protect your assets, your personal assets. You can protect the properties themselves. So that's how it simply works. If you like what you heard on this video, please like the video, and better yet, subscribe to this channel. And if you have any questions about investing in real estate, please, in the comment field, let me know, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. This is Angelis saying thank you again for visiting me. Have a great day.